Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we're going to recap the main event of Fight to Win 214. We're going to recap who's number one, Brianna Ste-Marie versus Mayssa Bastos, as well as the rest of the stacked card. Do a little bit of preview for Abu Dhabi World Pro that's coming up, Finisher 17 that's coming up, and ONE FC is having another big grappling match we want to talk about between Danielle Kelly and a Samba woman. Yes. As always, in the show, I'm your host, Maine, to my co-host,
Miranda.
How you doing, Miranda?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. My note. I realized I started the recording, and my notes immediately went to another page. And I was like, cool, let's see if I can do it from memory still, like the old days. So we're back. Not a ton of news this week. Biggest news we have. Did I miss anything we're covering this week?
I don't think so.
That's it. We have Subversive in a couple weeks. We have a bunch of like really fun cards coming up. Also this week, the IBJJF Absolute GP. We're going to preview that as well.
They just announced Grapple in the Temple. You know?
Oh yeah.
And it's Alvarenga versus Calistine.
Oh, that'll be good.
John
we haven't
Calistine.
seen John in a little bit here.
He was at Emerald City, but I think I think he was the Emerald City match that didn't happen because the doctor left.
That was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That was
like I don't know if I've seen Calistine since.
Yeah, we saw him a ton. Back in probably 2017.
Yeah, and he kind of rolled out.
Yep. So it's cool to see him back. So we'll preview that this week. News-wise, we don't have a ton of stuff.
How about the Gordon Ryan match that's coming up?
Oh, yeah. So, okay, let's talk about that. So at Who's Number One, as they do, which I appreciate, they announced the co-main event and the main event. Main event is going to be Gordon Ryan versus Felipe Pena. They're calling it 2, and even Ricardo Amendolia on the broadcast basically went, we're calling it 2 because it's the second time we've done it, but this will be their 4th matchup. We don't know the rules yet. We don't know the stipulations. Then we know both guys wanted the rematch. So, if both guys want the rematch, I'm all for the rematch. It's, again, one of the few kind of interesting matches that you can put Gordon in, even though I'm not really sure how much interest there is, especially with Pena's performance at ADCC and how the last match went, with right around the death of Leandro. Like, the whole situation's a little weird. I kind of hope that we just get, like, a regular match between the guys and it puts it to rest, and we can figure out, like, yep, Pena in a short time frame can still, has Gordon's number there, or Gordon can move through Pena like a lot of people expect him to, and we can kind of put this to bed. I think Gordon still wants to beat Pena 3 times, which I can appreciate the soul behind that. But on the co-main event, which is really interesting, we have Craig Jones rematching Nicholas Margali. So when this was announced, I went back and rewatched this match.
The ADCC
match that they had in the semifinals of under 99. This is a close match. Craig pretty clearly takes it, but it has some really interesting tactical pieces and wrinkles in Margali's game that we weren't expecting at the time, and then I kind of went back and went, oh yeah, Margali looked a lot more comfortable in the leg exchanges than I even remember him looking. This would be a very interesting match, especially with a couple more months for Margali to specifically plan for Craig. I think this is February, right?
Yeah, February.
Yeah, February.
I don't know if they gave a date. I'm sure they gave a date, but I didn't write it down. It's February of next year.
Yeah, something like that. Which again, it's coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. So those are good matches, and honestly, this weekend's Who's Number One was awesome. We'll talk about it. We're gonna recap it right now. I don't think we have any other news, right?
No.
We went to the Craig Jones seminar this weekend in Bethlehem, PA. You, me, Rachel, buddy of ours, Adam, all went up there, and it was a great seminar. We'll talk probably about that in the outro.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
Had a great time. Learned a lot from Craig Jones. Let's get into it.
Had him recognize you.
He recognized me. Yeah, that was the highlight of the weekend. He looked at me. We got a picture at the end, and we were walking up to take a picture, and he points to me and goes, "Podcast guy." And when it wasn't like, "Oh, podcast guy." It was like "Podcast guy" and a smile, and I was like, "Yes, podcast guy." That was by far the highlight of my weekend. Was Craig Jones pointing and going, "You," and a bunch of other people kind of recognized us there, which was kind of neat. Yeah. And it is very fun to have that happen, at ADCC and around. Oh yeah, we've been around for a while now. Oh, we just hit the 5th year anniversary of the podcast.
Yay!
I think this week or last week will be the 5th year anniversary, which is just wild. That this show I started at my kitchen table with Josh Weinstock 5 years ago has turned into kind of what it is now, and we've had the opportunities that have come from the show, and we've done all the coverage and talked to all the athletes and launched a website that I don't really update that much, and the YouTube channel and kind of all the other things that we do. It's really cool to still be sitting here and still kind of have the passion that I had 5 years ago for the show now, and to still kind of be excited to do the show every week and talk about jiu-jitsu and like watch jiu-jitsu and take notes, and it's been a really cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's been really cool to have you on for the last, I think, close to a year,
probably
year
a
and a half, something
year
like
and
that.
a half, something like that.
It's been phenomenal.
You found me in COVID.
I found you. I was like, hey,
after COVID.
You watch a lot of jiu-jitsu and are very knowledgeable. Do you want to come and talk on the show with me? And you were like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And it's been great. So let's move into the recap of Tezos. Who's number one? Brianna Ste-Marie.
Can we one day tell me what Tezos actually is?
It's a blockchain.
What
crypto,
the hell does that even mean?
It's like a crypto thing.
I don't even know what that means.
It's like
if somebody wants to explain that to me one day,
DM Miranda.
DM me.
And it's
tell
crypto.
me what the hell it is, because I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep on giving away shit, and I don't even know what they're giving away.
NFTs.
Yeah, and I was just all confused. Yeah. Anyway.
So. Moving on, Brianna Ste-Marie versus Mayssa Bastos was the main event. I want to talk quickly about. Let's go out of order here.
Okay.
Talk about Jacob Couch coming in. Was he a late replacement in this match?
He was.
Yeah.
He replaced Isaac Michelle, who or it's Michelle, right?
I think it's Michelle, because we called him Isaac Mitchell for a long time.
Yeah, it's Michelle. Okay, it is Michelle. Okay. Yeah, he had a knee injury, so
which sucks. I hope that, he gets. And dude, so this is basically this match is really easy to break down because. We had Bruno go for the body lock, and Jacob Couch pulled and got body locked by Bruno, and then he opens the guard, he opens his guard again, he kind of flips the side, and then Couch goes, you know what, you're body locking me, I'm gonna go for this Kimura because it's fresh, I'm early, I'm really strong, see if it opens up anything. He digs the far side Kimura, and then Bruno kind of postures up, and Couch goes, cool, choke, and locks in the choke, which is usually something you see Couch do. Couch has a crazy squeeze. And we know he has a crazy squeeze because we've seen it. I've seen it live. And there's a lot of dudes that Couch has grabbed the neck of from odd positions and angles that he's finished. Couch grabs it, and then you're like, okay, Bruno's going to probably get his hands free, posture out. From this position, it's kind of hard to finish. And then you see Couch sail into the choke. And you kind of go, as the viewer, at least when I was watching this live, went, is this in?
Yeah, I was like, wow.
Is this really
that's
deep?
Normally not that deep. I mean,
yeah.
You normally, people get it from there, and people do it all, especially on arm and guillotine.
Yeah.
That normally isn't that much of a problem, but
No.
It definitely was.
But a fresh Jacob Couch early in the match, him grabbing that up, it was ooh, that's very, very tight. And you see him kind of switch his legs, switch the body off, and then he doesn't even make that big of an angle for the arm in. He kind of just crunches back and then gets the finish on Bruno. And again, really impressive. I love Couch's post-fight interviews too. Yeah, he's always so wholesome. He's man, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to take the opportunity. to come
he was
and show up.
he was I wonder how much whatever they gave him, some kind of Tezos something, and he was I wonder how many Mountain Dews I can get with this. And I was hell yeah,
I love that.
Drink the Mountain Dew.
It's awesome.
Get diabetes.
So Couch gets it done again. Looks again very quick match. I think 2:30 or something like that into the match. Very quick.
Yeah, this something I didn't write down the time on this, but this was definitely it was before the first
judges period, which they do in 5-minute increments.
Yeah,
3 of them.
So it was before that.
Yeah. Crazy. Again, this was a banger week for cards. The UFC was awesome. There's a couple things in the UFC I might want to talk about for grappling. Chandler and Poirier, and the other one I want to talk about was the women's preliminary fight. Erin Blanchfield versus Molly McCann. We'll talk about that probably later. But it was Who's Number One and UFC both they just ran Who's Number One. If this is indicative of their pacing for the rest of their events coming up, I cannot wait to watch these live. This thing was 3.5 hours end to end. The main card, end to end, was 2 hours.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Well, it seems like they've gotten their shit together at this point,
which is good because I didn't feel like I was being punished with the pacing for either UFC or for this weekend.
It still is annoying that, but I think it's a flow thing. That take away the stupid
commercial break
and put your commercials that you're splitting the screen when actual action is happening. Yeah. Put those commercials in your commercial break time. Like, I don't understand the problem there. I don't understand why they don't do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Because then who the fuck is getting actual commercials during that commercial break time that we get, like, we get songs? Like, who's getting commercials?
Because it's in broadcast. It's not.
Yeah.
So, moving on. Let's talk about, you want to move on to the main event here? Let's talk about Brianna Ste-Marie. I keep butchering her name.
Are you sure it's Ste-Marie?
It's not. I don't think it's Ste-Marie. I called her Ste-Marie for a long time.
Yeah, but that's what everybody on the show calls her.
Okay.
That's what everybody's calling her.
Is it?
Your wife said it
Brianna
was
Ste-Marie
yeah,
or Ste-Marie?
That's what your wife says.
Okay.
And maybe your wife has.
Because you saw her at a seminar.
I don't remember. I wasn't paying that much attention. I mean, I do, but not like.
We had Brianna versus
much.
Mayssa Bastos, and in the lead up to this match, I was kind of thinking about how we know how Bastos, especially in Nogi, deals with bigger people. Like Bastos very much wants to play guard, pretty much against anyone in her own weight class. She's very good at sweeping, getting on top, and like doing things. But versus women outside of her weight class, and Brianna is outside of her weight class.
But she weighed in at 121, and Brianna weighed in at 135.
Yeah.
So it's not. I mean, it's 10 pounds.
It's 10 pounds, but still,
it's significant, but it's not as significant as.
It's not like mosquito or like it's not 45.
As a smaller woman, 3/4 of your training partners are bigger than you.
At least, probably.
Most of my training partners are at least 30 pounds bigger than me.
Yeah.
So. You just kind of get used to it. So, I mean, yes, it is an issue, but it's not.
Well, I'm not saying it's an issue, but with how we see Bastos typically approach those matches, we know that Bastos is going to play guard like exclusively, and she will sort of hunt the back. And Bastos' guard is incredibly hard to pass. And I was thinking, well, the only way that Brianna can really do this is you probably can't pass Mayssa Bastos' guard. Like, the rooster rates can hardly get through.
Yeah.
So it's like Brianna, as a bigger player on top, is probably not going to be able to get past her guard. She's probably going to have to force the back take, which is exactly what she does.
Yeah.
She pressures into Bastos for the first 10 minutes of the match or so.
Yeah.
And then on like essentially a really, really aggressive double underpass, completely lifts Bastos up into the turtle.
Yeah.
And then works and then uses the Kimura on the far side to get her back. They roll out of bounds. And then the next like 5 minutes or so of the match are just Brianna on top, imposing a back control game on Bastos, like
and
belly
hand
and face down, hand fighting for the choke. And it was really interesting to kind of think about the tactics of like, so few people can pass Bastos. You're sort of left with your only option being like, you have to take her back from the guard. Like, you have to pass immediately to the guard or force her to turtle in some way because she's so flexible with the way she can get her legs in front and her guard retention is so good.
Well, and she has a like supine guard. I think that's what they refer to it
supine
as.
Guard,
like if you're on your back. I mean, that for her is as efficient as like her seated guard.
Yeah.
Like, and it really doesn't matter. So,
well, she folds her legs like almost to her shoulders. And so even if you flatten her out completely, her legs are still exactly in front of you still. And there's no, you're not passing around her legs because Bastos doesn't typically play. She plays a very compact guard. She's not long and rangy. She forces you to come in and play a very, very close range guard in that you literally cannot smash her enough to get past it usually.
Which means her back is probably going to get screwed up in the next 10 years.
There's that. But it is really interesting tactically that we see Brianna take that route of like, well, you're not going to be able to pass her. You're going to probably be able to win on activity and pressure forward. Yeah. But if you actually want to do any positional work, you're going to have to go to her back, and Brown was able to do that. Yeah. It was just a really interesting kind of thought process I had during the week. In like, we previewed it and I wasn't super happy with our preview, and I was thinking about more of the dynamics of the matchup of like, I don't think she can pass, but you're gonna have to be forced to try to expose the back because Bastos can fold through so well. Yeah. So it was really interesting. I think Brianna's stock raises here. I did really appreciate her post-fight interview where she talked about jiu-jitsu still being illegal in Quebec. Yeah. And I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with this. There's actually a really good Reddit post on this and has a bunch of linked articles. When it became illegal back 6 years, or maybe not, when it was on the ballot, it was a referendum for its change of legalization. Like, something came through the Canadian legal system 5 or 6 years ago. Might have been more than that, actually. And basically somebody went through and explained and gave some supporting evidence for why it was and how it's banned and how the verbiage is actually written for why it's banned in Quebec. I do hope that does change. We have a lot more Canadians. We have Dante Leon, she's like Pierre Leclerc. We have Ethan Crelinsten. Again, not all of them are from Quebec and Montreal. Ricardo Amendola, which was
but
on commentary.
they've all trained up there.
Dante
or
Leon.
been training up there for a long period of time.
We have many more, Canadian Oliver Taza, Canadian contingent folks. It would be really great to see, it legalized there so that we could potentially have an even larger growth and outcrop of grapplers that are coming from up north.
And just so, it's known, it's not that training in jiu-jitsu is illegal.
Yeah, competition.
It's competition in jiu-jitsu is illegal.
Yeah, and I forget exactly. I pulled the law years and years ago because I was like, that can't be right. And I read it and I was like, oh, yep, it's not explicitly like banned, but like you can't like choke in. It's written in a very specific way where it's like, you can't do jiu-jitsu. You wouldn't be able to legally do jiu-jitsu competitions that have any like even semblance of a regular jiu-jitsu competition in that rule set.
Yeah.
So again, hope that passes and hope that that there is pressure put and that law changes, because it would be really great to see that section and those folks in that section of the country be able to do jiu-jitsu competitions. Moving on, let's talk about what I thought was the hot fire match of the weekend. Cole Abate versus Damien Anderson. Damien Anderson comes in as a late replacement, and I was happy for it.
Josh Cisneros.
Yeah, for Cisneros, which again, the Cisneros and Abate match would have been great to see.
Yeah.
But man, if there was going to be a replacement, you replaced action fighter in Cisneros with an action fighter in Damien Anderson, and these guys went at it. So my notes for this are like an entire paragraph of just like activity and reversals.
It was hard to try to keep track of what was going on because it was just reversal after reversal, and then this one went for that. And then every time Cole got Damien in a not so great position, it was like Damien fought out of it and immediately grabbed something, and then it just kept on like building from there. And I mean, they both did an amazing job.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it could have went really either way when you think about it.
I thought it was pretty clearly Cole, but I definitely thought that like it was extremely close, but most of the exchanges you had Cole like either initiating the exchange or like kind of determining the pace of that exchange. I thought Anderson's pace and like the offense that he was trying to put up was great, but Abate for everything had an answer, and a lot of times had what I thought was like a really good counter in ways that I'm not sure if I didn't expect them, or like we haven't been covering Abate for a ton of years. Like really, we covered him at trials, at ADCC, and in a couple of super fights.
17 turning 18.
He's turning 18, I think, in
a couple days.
Tomorrow, or when this show, by the Wednesday of this show, he will be 18. Congrats to him getting out of the juveniles. Damien Anderson had a hilarious thing on the in the pre-fight during the press conference. He was basically like, Cole is still technically a minor, so we had to make sure Craig Jones couldn't come. Luckily, he's in New York, and I was like, he's not in New York, he's in Pennsylvania, teaching me stuff.
Well, he was actually in New York too, because he was. I want to say he was at the UFC fight. The UFC fight was in New York.
Oh yeah, it was. That was Saturday.
Yeah, because I kept on seeing pictures of like Josh Hinger in New York.
Yeah, because Hinger was in Whaley's corner.
Yeah, and I was like, why? I was like, why is Josh Hinger in New York? And then I was like trying to like figure out exactly what was going on.
So Damien Anderson basically made a really funny joke that Craig couldn't corner the match, couldn't be within 500 feet of a minor, and it was very funny because then it cuts back to Mike Flo, and Mike kind of goes, oh, and like he has no idea how to deal with it, and the whole clip is on Instagram. I thought it was like showing some personality for Damien Anderson, and like how kind of quick on his feet he is, and it really just made me really appreciate Anderson, kind of covering him the last year, like in this matchup, just to see him kind of like open up and take on a guy like Abate. But Abate consistently impressed me here with like the comfort in the leg locks and the ability to like force Anderson into a leg lock. Anderson would counter, and then Abate would like halfway through the counter, like either use it to get up or to sweep or to like change the leg lock position. You also
have to remember he is at AOJ, and there are more IBJJF
Well, and that's kind of why
based program.
Whenever you have a guy from really heavy IBJJF gym, I'm always concerned about like the depth of their leg locks, and like with Abate.
But now they're legal.
They are legal
technically, not for him.
Not for him.
He's
but
a
also
belt.
He's going to ADCC, and like I'm used to kind of the yesteryear of really heavy IBJJF gyms being very lagged behind in leg locks, and Cole Abate is not.
Yeah.
Like, we saw that here. Anderson is a really dangerous leg locker, and we saw Abate consistently, like, identify the position early, either free his knee line or use it to sweep or come up. He played a lot of a variation of an X guard where he would lift Damien Anderson's leg up his chest. Like, it wasn't hooked over, it wasn't on the shoulder. He would hold it with both hands in front of him, and he would sort of force Anderson to either commit and to try to pass or to escape and try to get out, and he'd use that to either wrestle up or to like enter into a leg or to try to enter a sweep. It was a really interesting dilemma that he kept putting Anderson in like a couple times throughout the matches. Like, he would lift the leg up like he was going to start a wrestle up, but he would then force Anderson to like have to counter that, and then he would get to counter the counter. And like that's sort of the framework of this match, is that one guy's doing something, the other guy's going to counter, you're then going to see the counter of the counter, and then you're going to see like a final counter of that, and then partially a scramble, and then there would be a positional change.
Yeah.
Overall, just beautiful technical jiu-jitsu from both these guys.
After that one, just because for flow purposes, we should go to the one undercard match, because it had the same thing. It was just it was just a younger version of the same thing.
We had was actually probably older technically.
Yeah, they're
Cole.
19. They're older, but they're brown belts. So like jiu-jitsu now, because he's a purple.
Cole's been at ADCC. He a black
then
belt.
Just a different.
Interesting position in this match we had for Cole and Damien, kind of in the end of the to get to that next match. We had a lot of really what is like double open 50-50. What do you want to call that position? It's like double seated open guard.
There's probably a term for it.
I don't think there is a term for it. Like, I don't know of a term. I've never heard anyone refer to that. So what it is basically, it's like, let's say both guys are sitting on their butt, and then instead of being like both legs over one side like 50-50, you're both like open center to center with both legs on each other's hip on the outside. I have no more elegant way to describe this position. And you can overhook the legs or underhook the legs here, but a lot of times guys will go for
like a gymnastic position.
It does look like a gymnastic position. And both guys will like overhook, and it was really interesting to see kind of how Abate and Anderson both decided to play, because you saw them in this position and you could tell both guys like wanted to go offense but also wait for the counter, and it was just really interesting. So this match, Abate takes by decision. I thought it was a very, very close match, but I would have kind of cleanly given the decision to Abate. You can definitely make an argument.
Yeah, I would make an argument, but I mean, Cole definitely he began the exchanges. If we go back to like who actually initiated everything, Cole initiated. Damien was really good at then turning things around and making it not a problem for him.
Right. But he was on the counter.
But he was on
a lot more of the match.
And
even like when he would initiate, a lot of times Abate would force him into like a defensive reaction for something he would initiate, and I thought it was beautiful. Oh, one more thing on this match before we move on.
Okay.
Damien Anderson like passed like twice in this match for like a split second, and then Abate immediately as Anderson would go to settle his hips down would invert under and get his legs back in front. And it was wild to watch in real time Abate be able to, like, Anderson would do some beautiful passing like we saw Gordon do versus Victor Hugo, kind of that outstepping passing to get around. He would finally get past, and then Abate, before Anderson was able to settle his hips down, would spin underneath and get back his guard. It was wild to see that happen in real time, and like how good Abate is at the regard. So again, Abate takes that. Great match. I'll watch these guys fight forever. The lightweights right now and the 66ers in jiu-jitsu are awesome. I will watch all of these guys in the top 15 fight every weekend. Move on to the undercard match that Miranda was talking about. Jozef Chen versus Derek Rayfield.
No, I wasn't going to that one. I was actually going to the first fight of the night, which is Mourece Ramirez versus Keven Carrasco.
Okay.
Only because
Ramirez takes that one by decision.
Yeah, if Ramirez does take it. Ramirez takes it. He's a student of Mauricio Andrey, who was his corner. But this match is very, very similar to the other match.
Mm-hmm. I have a note for this. Is Battle of the Young Guns.
Yeah,
it's like two 19-year-old brown belts.
Which, I mean, Cole Abate is also super young. So but this is, if you took this is the undercard version of that match. Yeah. Because it's the same thing. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a crazy pace. It's a lot of scrambles.
This card was so well matched for in so many regards. I think that Flo really made some changes,
Yeah.
and these matchups delivered, like undercard to main card all the way.
And so on this one, the one thing that we were discussing with this was the fact that sometimes when they would get in positions, it was fun to watch them both look at their coach.
I loved that during the
and
match.
like you could look at them and they're like, "What the hell do I do?"
Well, there was
here?"
sometimes where they pause, where you see both guys were in a like exchange, and you see both of them like kind of pause and look at the. And you see like guys looking in his corner, and it's like, oh, that's so cool that he is A, that comfortable in that position, but B, still looking for that feedback at this point in his career from his corner for like how he should be either technically or tactically dealing with this position on this kind of stage versus a really dangerous opponent versus Abate and Anderson like. Very, very similar exchanges, but the guys like they're hearing their corners, but they're not taking that time to like.
No, they're
pause.
reacting immediately.
Yeah, it was just really interesting, kind of the dichotomy of like, oh yeah, Ramirez and Carrasco, like these are two guys that we're going to see in a couple of years in that same position where it's like they have the confidence, they're that good, they're that comfortable with it, and I think this match is a forecast of things to come in jiu-jitsu. Two really good brown belts duking it out.
Pretty much. And Ramirez does a jumping crab ride, which was fun because it's not that I just learned that this weekend, but I just like it just kind of made sense to me this weekend that if somebody
up in conversation.
Yeah, it popped up in no, it actually popped up while rolling.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, one of my friends told me this, and I was like, "Oh, you can do that." But basically,
we see
if somebody is inverted with their head towards you and their feet up, you can crab ride and jump to their back. I think the first time I tried it, I face planted, it happens. But it was nice to see him do that and almost get his back at one point. But it was a very interesting match. It's also a decision. Ramirez takes the decision, and that was the first fight.
Yeah, I think it opened the card up right.
Yeah,
and again,
definitely.
It was very. But
fun. I just wanted to, because the two of them were very similar matches with younger, very fast moving,
very technical
gentlemen that went
grapplers.
Yeah, and neither was trying to like concede to a position or another position. They were okay anywhere.
They were both willing to play through.
Oh,
We have a lot of times those matches where you have like the young grapplers or like guys that are like newer on this kind of stage. They don't freeze up, but they're just so unwilling to take any risk that you get boring matches. All four of these grapplers, like it's awesome to see them like be willing to take the risks. Yeah. And that was cool. So next match, very quick match. Luke Griffith defeats Haisam Rida via submission, heel hook, about I think 26 seconds. I think so.
Yeah, I said it was under 30 seconds.
Is this the first African super fight that we've had on Who's Number One? Because Haisam Rida is from Ghana and Luke Griffith is from South Africa, correct?
Yes.
So I'm curious, is this the first like
I would think
African super fight that we've had on Who's Number One? Like that's cool. I'm not sure if commentary brought that up, but it's really cool that we're getting even more talent out of Africa and out of South Africa.
Yeah, I don't.
Recently, last
I'm
couple
trying to
of
think
years.
who else is from.
Peyton Letcher, the champion, the European Trials champion, is South African.
Yeah.
There's a couple other South African.
But
grapplers.
I don't think any of them were on Who's Number One before.
But they wouldn't have been. I don't think they would have been matched up against each other.
No.
Which
this
is why.
This is probably the first.
So that's a cool historic thing. This was super quick. This was Luke pulls, Haisam immediately makes range and like gets in for a big outside pass, gets past, gets in the belly, and Luke goes, whoop, better go for the legs.
Better roll up the single leg X.
And then he immediately rolls single leg X, gets the 50-50, and then just outside heel hooks in 24 seconds.
Yeah, less than 30.
And that was the match.
That was the entire match.
It was we know Haisam, historically has had kind of some issues with leg locks, and we've seen that be a problem, not be a problem, be a problem, not be a problem. It's not necessarily a consistent way nowadays. In Haisam's brown belt career, it was sort of more of a thing that we saw. We saw, especially in the Lachlan match a couple of years back, we saw that, but it doesn't really answer for me. It's such a quick match. I'm not sure how much really it answers for questions. It shows that Luke Griffith is on that level, but we already knew that. He won trials for ADCC. It's an interesting thing. I think Haisam was ranked 11th. Luke was ranked 17th. I think Luke will probably jump up pretty significantly in the rankings there.
So too.
And so he, again, really comes into the mix, and we saw him, do well at EBI. had a really close match with Nick Rodriguez. It will be interesting to see kind of where Luke Griffith goes from here. I'm very curious who at plus 99 they're going to match him up with, because I think there's some really interesting guys as under New Wave as he continues to progress.
I wonder if him and Big Dan in the same room together, how that goes.
I'm curious
because
they're both big lead lockers.
They're both heavyweights.
Yeah. They're both like 6'5" too, aren't they? Or is Dan 6'8"?
I think
Dan's huge.
Dan's huge and has a lot more body mass.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that they're all on the same team, because at some point something's going to happen.
I mean, they've been bracketed together before, but they've never met.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious, especially both those guys. I think Luke, are they both purple belts? Are they one of them brown belt?
I think they're. I don't know. I don't know the rank.
I don't think either of them are
Griffith.
black belts right now. But I
don't think so either.
It would be really curious to see if they do meet up.
Yeah.
I think New Wave does that. I don't think they don't meet up in competition. They've had guys from DDS enter before, but it's still pretty rare. But again, it's a pretty small team. So again, curious, not sure where Luke goes from here. But very definitive result over a really tough competitor in Haisam Rida. Next match, we had Ethan Crelinsten beating Fabricio Andrey. I think this was a big upset.
This is a big upset.
Yeah, and this was by submission. This was a rear naked, like a modified rear naked. Sorry, not a modified rear naked choke.
It's a rear naked choke.
Rear naked choke. This result has it at 7-12. I thought it was later in the match than that. Am I incorrect?
I think. So the way I have it starting at 8:57.
Okay, so it was, yeah. So it was something
probably
like that.
was, yeah. Because I have the whole sequence beginning
with 8 minutes left, 8:57 left.
Yeah.
This was fun because
and it's Crelinsten.
What'd I say? I said Crelinsten.
I know. I've always said Crelinsten.
No, it's Crelinsten.
It's Crelinsten.
Because if you ever look, like when he was still a brown belt, and I had a BJJ Heroes page, he was getting on stuff, and they were still misspelling his name, and he just laughed about it. He goes, "Yeah, they misspell it sometimes," because he was on Quintet Parabellum a couple years ago. It was a really great, fun quintet event, and he was super happy because they gave everyone custom rash guards with their name on the back, and it was spelled correctly.
Oh, nice.
I think, and it was cool. It's like, hey, they spelled it correctly.
I have a badge at work up on my wall where they spelled Philadelphia wrong. They spelled it Philadelphia or something.
Oh, that's great.
And I have it from when I went to an event, and it has Philadelphia spelled wrong, which I was like, who the hell doesn't know how to spell Philadelphia? But anyway.
So Ethan pulls here, and it kind of, I'm not saying expected, but it's a tactic we've seen Ethan use before. There was a really interesting sequence here where Fabricio passes and kind of gets behind Ethan, and Ethan essentially does a roll through and ends up in Fabricio's guard. And then someone on Reddit was like, hey, he's done this before, and pulled a B-team video of him training, doing that exact same thing. And I was like, that was cool. Thanks Reddit for that one.
Yeah.
And it was just really cool. It's something that it was it's a situational thing, and nope, it's something he has drilled and worked on.
Yeah.
And here's it working versus Fabricio Andrey, and it was wild. And I was like, ooh, this match may be a little closer than I think.
And I think this is also one of the first times I've really seen Crelinsten real kind of take off and hit the next level.
Well, he's
had
really great performances, but he's had some mixed performances now and again.
But prior to ADCC, they were rather mixed.
He would have he'd win trials.
Yeah.
And then he would bounce back and forth. But even
he didn't win trials.
He did in 2017.
Okay, but not recently. Not this year.
Not this year. No. Not this year or last year. And he didn't win this series. So that's why he got in, because they honored his previous winning of trials, because he had to
but they
pull
brought
out
him in as an
because he won trials previously. Yeah.
Okay.
So we also saw Ethan wrestling up a ton here.
Yeah.
And that was, again, stuff we've seen him do, but he did, I think, 3 separate times on Fabricio Andrey. And I was curious if it was a rule set thing, or if it was, Ethan's just gotten that good at the wrestle up. And I couldn't tell if Fabricio was trying to counter it.
There could have been a part of him. Well, no, because he stood with Fabricio
for pieces. Yeah,
for pieces. But he did wrestle up a lot more than.
Yeah, there were
than
3
normal.
separate wrestle ups, and 2 of them were like.
I mean,
the
I'm a
exact
fan.
Same
I think wrestle ups are amazing.
I think we're going to see more and more wrestle ups, especially at the lower weight class. I say the lower weight classes. I think at all weight classes, it's one of those techniques that we're just seeing. Like, if you can't sweep a guy or a woman,
I think it's so much easier.
you can tech up into them, and then if you can get the single leg, you end up with the single leg in a position to scissor lift or like step up with it, and they have a really hard time sprawling away from you. And so we're seeing more people use this technique now. I think even like from the rooster weights all the way to the ultra heavies and super heavies, it's a technique we've really seen, pay a lot of mileage. And Ethan hits the same wrestle up twice here on Fabricio Andrey. And the third wrestle up, he does kind of like an outside swing single and step up with it. But again, it's another wrestle up from the guard that he gets Hokage down with. And it was just really interesting to see him like that keep going back to that technique and then keep being successful at that technique versus Fabricio Andrey.
You weren't talking about the last one, right? The last one, that's the sequence before the.
That's the swing single. That's the swing single out.
It really wasn't.
Was it not?
No, it was a wrestle up, and then he put his arm around his waist to a body lock to a mat return.
But the initial one that he gets up with is he comes out
with his arms around his waist.
Well, initially he gets the arm around the leg, and then he goes up to the waist.
Yeah.
He climbs up to the waist there. Yeah, he hits a body lock, and then Fabricio...
I don't know. I consider a sweep single like you shoot down the middle and come out the side.
And he does it kind of from the guard though, so it's not really a shot sweep single. It's just like I consider it because he rolls out to the side. Again, I'm not a wrestler.
That makes sense.
That's why I consider it like a sweep single because he sweeps to the outside. Maybe probably wrestler will DM me and go, "This is what it's called." Like, thank you, I appreciate that. My wrestling is not up to par at this point.
But anyway, so because it was like a mat return because he literally like picks him up and kind of puts him down.
Yeah, he does it and then sweeps the feet out and comes down, and then forces the turtle. And then starts hunting the back. And I went, okay, like Hokage's got an amazing scramble. Crelinsten is a really, really good back taker. And I went, ooh, this is interesting. Because usually if you see someone in kind of a scramble sequence escape the back, it happens in the first like couple seconds of that scramble. Usually you don't see prolonged scrambles out of the back where the guy eventually like gets out of the back.
True. Normally it comes in transitions if it comes in later.
And you saw Ethan kind of like Hokage almost got out, and Ethan had just enough control of the back to get the one hook in, and he was able to plant the hook in and then use like Fabricio moving to like shimmy up to get the other hook in. And I went, ooh, this is...
He had a crossbody ride for most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he switched. He goes to that.
Yeah.
And then you see him start to go for the choke. And I was like, ooh, that's really tight. And then later in that sequence, he traps Fabricio's arm. And I went, okay, it's a one-arm rear naked choke now. And then Fabricio gets the arm free. And I was like, but Ethan doesn't readdress the arm getting free. He just continues the choke there. And I thought it was a really interesting tactical decision because you saw like Ethan was probably confident enough in the choke, obviously he was, in the choke that he had, that he didn't feel the need to trap the arm again.
Well, I think also when you have somebody like on a crossbody ride with even a single arm, you're kind of twisting their body as you pull.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, your rear naked isn't straight on; it's kind of to the side, and then your legs kind of twist their body. So it
makes it really hard to get your shoulders down and out to kind of free yourself out of the choke. And even
and
if
it's
you
also
have
like
your hand,
it's also more than choke. It's like a cranky choke. Like it's a nasty
it's like,
ass.
hey, it hurts the whole time you're getting choked.
It's a painful fucking choke.
Yeah. Again, it was just really impressive. Like I did not pick. I thought this was going to be a much tougher match for Ethan.
I thought so too.
I was very, very impressed with like. Nope, Ethan looked pretty in control. Even the first 5 minutes of the match, judges favored Ethan at that point in the match, and I was just really, really impressed with how he looked. I'm very curious to see what changes and improvements he will continue to make at B Team, and after seeing this match, I'm kind of much more interested in the Cade match again.
Okay,
like maybe not like in the next 6 months, but. I'm just very curious because the first Cade match was extremely close. The second Cade match, and I think arguably Ethan won that. I think he lost on the decision, but arguably he won that.
Yeah.
The second Cade match, Cade submitted him, looked phenomenal. Then Cade went on to do what Cade did and win ADCC about a year later. if Ethan continues to look like this and kind of stays in the shape that he's in and kind of like went through this transformation physique-wise, very interested to see what he's going to, if that match is on the table again, how he fares. Again, it's still kind of caged to lose at this point, but looked very impressive versus Fabricio Andrey. So, again, more matches for guys at 66 and 77 than I am. These are guys at 66, but really excited to see.
Yeah, totally.
So that does it for the main card. 2 more matches I want to talk about very, very briefly on the preliminary card. Let's talk about Jozef Chen versus Derek Rayfield. Another late replacement.
Yeah,
and Derek Rayfield.
Yeah, he came in for Andy Varela.
Yeah.
Because they both train out of 10th Planet in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And Derek Rayfield just did a submission-only series, which was either 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. He lost to Kenta.
Yeah,
in overtime.
Yep.
Yeah. And then he also was in the EBI qualifier.
Well, he's one of the guys that Shangoli
ripped his foot off.
And apparently he's again, I'm very happy that
Which,
it looked brutal.
After this
very happy he's fine.
After this match, he didn't look like he was in the greatest shape either.
Yeah, the leg look. So what happens here is a Z-lock happens.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a situation. So a Z-lock is basically
it's a hip
lock.
It's a hip lock. I've looked into it only because after I did a seminar with Junie, and Junie does Z-locks.
Junie is the guy that got it from Eddie Cummings. That is like the guy that hits it.
Yeah.
Like I know it.
And then I think
from him.
Yeah. And then Lachlan Giles actually covered it recently, but he actually credited it back to Junie, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So and Junie, it's a very weird sensation because it's your hip. It's not your knee. It's not your ankle.
It's almost like if you ever have someone who's really, really good at the scissor half guard. Yeah. And they flex up. They put their top side knee shield leg in your hip joint. And the lower leg they put underneath and they scissor through. Yeah. You can lift the leg and the hip out of socket. And it's a very odd sensation. The Z-lock kind of feels similar to that, where it's twisting the bone out of the joint, and it's very, very uncomfortable. It can also attack the knee too, which I think might have happened here. But basically, Jozef Chen and Derek Rayfield are. It's a very fun match. Jozef Chen repeatedly uses the butterfly guard.
So you know who Jozef Chen is. Jozef Chen was just in Midwest Finishers. We covered him for that. Yeah, he was on the team event. He is one of the B team. C team? Is that what
he is?
Yeah.
Is that what they call him?
No, okay. That's what I just made up.
B team. He's like B team.
He's the B team C team.
Yeah.
He's below the B team Yeah. Because there is no B team A team. There's BB, and then he's B team C. I
think he's very quickly going to graduate to B team A because he won Pans too. I didn't cover him on Pans, but I watched some of his Pans matches at Purple Belt, and dude looks good. He's a guy, especially Baron Who's Number One now, that I think we're going to see a lot more of. Yeah. And again, I love that Who's Number One is showcasing on the preliminary cards more up-and-coming colored belts, because that's kind of where your talent comes up from in years, and then you give people that are on the level an opportunity to showcase their skills, and then give them a platform to kind of get super fights, and now people know them, now people are kind of seeking them out, and you see them on more cards, and it's really cool. Yeah, he hits. So basically, he's in that double. What do we want to call this position?
I don't know.
We can't call it. You're smiling too much. Whatever name you have, we can't call it.
We can't call it exactly what I would like to call it right now. So
it's like a double. It's a double seated 50-50.
Yes.
But it's like an open 50-50.
Yeah, it's like some kind of weird leg nut. I don't know.
And so, but it looks like Joseph. Sorry, you can't.
No, but it looks like Jozef Chen was actually going after the left leg.
Yeah.
But the right leg was the one who was locked up, and I don't know if he says that he was going after it. I don't know.
Everyone looks surprised.
Yeah.
He looks surprised. Everybody kind of.
Everybody kind of looks surprised, and maybe. I also don't know if it was the same knee leg that Shingoli took out.
I don't know either. Thinking about it, I don't know. So what happened is, from this open double leg position where it's both guys have their legs, they're sitting and their legs are both on each other's hip line, sitting face to face with each other. Yeah. Jozef Chen basically threads his outside leg through the center line, but Derek Rayfield is kind of defending the other leg, so his hips are pointed down towards the leg he is defending.
Yeah.
When he re-squares, Jozef Chen continues to thread his leg across, and it creates this weird Z-lock pressure on the leg and the hip. And when Chen is looking for it, it's like it could be something that he's putting the foot in place there so that if you do decide to turn your hips back over like Derek does here, it gives you the Z-lock. And that's sort of what it looked like happened, but everyone looked surprised. So it's like Chen was definitely in the correct place to hit it, but he was very focused on the other leg.
Yeah.
And so it seemed like a very situational lock, but again, something he had set up for himself if that position occurred is sort of what I was guessing happened.
Yeah. For a second, I thought maybe he was trying to threaten. He was trying to set up the Z-lock and trying to set it up by kind of sidetracking him with the other leg.
That could have been the case as well.
And maybe he didn't expect it to be as tight, maybe, as it was, or get the reaction. It could have been a reaction thing.
Or it could have been Derek's leg was already hurt earlier, and because he's been competing a ton, and he's had some rough matches on his legs.
Yeah.
There could be a pre-existing injury there. But again, fun match. Jozef Chen looked very, very good. Rayfield's always a game competitor. So, again, hope that he is not. He was kind of limping after. Hope he is not injured. Hope that he's been a pretty consistent competitor on these big cards, so I would hope that he's healed and that he can continue to do that if he wishes to. But big win for Jozef Chen, and exciting match. Next match we had Emily Fernandez defeating Rosa Walsh via decision.
This was the other upset that I don't think anybody expected.
Yeah, I was familiar with Rosa Walsh. We've covered her. I've watched her. We watched her at ADCC Open. We've seen her on Grapple Fest. I was not as familiar with Emily Fernandez, and Emily Fernandez really impressed me here. Like, great positional work.
And she did exactly what she needed to do, which was control Rosa.
Yeah.
And you needed to just control her because, she will go through you, and so and we saw that with the takedown because she did an arm drag to an inside trip and they were down, and then it was just Fernandez and just guard, like basic guard Kimura attacks that you learned from day one, and it was.
But they were solid, and she did a really good job the whole time, controlling Rosa and keeping her posture low and down.
So I was trying to figure out if she was really ever going after the Kimura or if she was going after the sweep the whole time, and she was just threatening the Kimura in order to get a reaction and wait for her to off balance herself enough to sweep her.
It could be a situational thing where it's I'm going to go hard enough on this that you react to it, and if you give me either one, I'm going to take it, but I'm not really going to overcommit for either because you can get body locked. There's a lot of counters options you have when someone's digging the Kimura, so that's sort of what it seemed like to me, where it's I'm going to kind of play both sides of that position, where it's you give me the Kimura, I'm going to go for it, but you give me the sweep, I'm going to go for it, and not hard commit to either one and leave myself the options.
Yeah.
She has a nice armbar. She eventually gets Rosa's back and controls the position for
a bit.
Really good job, a seated back position with the body triangle in. Again, really, really impressive controlling performance from Fernandez.
Random question. Maybe you can answer this. Maybe you can't. When she is on her back, when she's on Rosa's back, Rosa. So, girl had normal both hooks in. Rosa was. Almost like the stupid white belt footlock where you cross your legs on top of their legs.
Yeah.
And try
it works beyond white belt, by the way.
And, it works if anybody crosses their legs. Yeah. But she was doing it, I think, in order to block the triangle.
Yeah, you can do, if the legs are triangled like that, you can push down and block. It hurts.
No, she wasn't using it to, so it was normal hooks. It wasn't anything special.
Yeah.
Rosa was crossing her feet over her feet. And I think it was to not go back into a body triangle.
Yeah, you can prevent the body triangle.
I think that's what she was doing with it.
And it's kind of
But it was kind of confusing me too because I was like, but you're kind of sticking yourself in that position.
A lot of times, it's a rough, I've done it before myself. Yeah.
It's a stall.
It's a stall, but it's also a buy you time because if you can trap someone on your back, if you're comfortable enough with the hand fight, if you can keep them in that position with the hooks in, and you can force them to try to overcommit with the upper body, and then because you're holding them in position now, you can dictate when you let go when you start fighting a hook out.
Okay.
So a lot of times you can kind of crunch their feet down and get a reaction out of them, and then either force a turn or like force them to kind of try to dig a hook out because like their foot's kind of getting hurt because you're usually not going to ever tap to it, but it does kind of create uncomfortable pressure.
It wasn't like she was creating pressure on it. It was more like she was controlling her by doing it. I've never seen very seldom have I ever seen that done.
Yeah, it's not something I see very commonly, but it's definitely, there's situations where I will definitely do it if I want to like, okay, you're moving too much. I can't go back to the body triangle. It's like I want to limit the dynamism of this position.
Yeah.
I'm going to lock you down, and then I'm going to start working my defensive options here, and then I'm going to force you to go, okay, I really want the body triangle. I'm going to overcommit to pull the hook out, or man, I'm going to dig these hooks in, and then I know where the hooks are so I can fight out of the position. So yeah, it's something that I don't see frequently, but there is some tactic behind it if you want to choose to make that tactical decision, which isn't necessarily a bad tactical decision. No. So very, very fun card. Emily Fernandez takes that via decision over Rosa Walsh. Very, very impressed with her performance. Overall, this card I think was the best pace Who's Number One card I can remember. Like they ran through, the matchups were amazing. I had a ton of fun like watching this card, and it ended at like I think like 10:45.
Yeah, it was
like
it
that
was
is
pretty early.
Perfect. If we talked, I think at the Craig Jones seminar, I was like, look, if Who's Number One cards are paced like this and matched like this, I'll watch every Friday.
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'll bring if they can end at 11:45, 10:45 on a Friday, I'll have people over to watch them.
But
like,
you don't.
that's
But
awesome.
you also don't want it to get to the point. At least, maybe I was the only one who did this, but I thought UFC cards were a lot more fun before they started doing fight nights all the time.
Yeah.
And I felt like
the scarcity of it was still kind of
fun.
fun.
It was still kind of fun to have one like once a month as opposed to like almost every week.
Still make it a special event. Yeah, I can appreciate that. I am very like soured by a lot of grappling events that just like for their main cards are like 3-4 hours. Like these cards when there's so few fights, they're great fights, but big dead air between. Like do what Fight to Win does and run them like back to back to back to back to back. Like the pacing is good. There's not a lot of dead air. I don't want to click off watching a Fight to Win live because the next match is 3 minutes, maybe if there's a big delay, it's 4 minutes between matches. But usually, match ends, next guys are walking out in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So I like that Who's Number One has made some changes to their pacing here, and I didn't feel like I was getting punished watching it live.
Let's hope to God this Gordon Ryan match isn't a no time limit match.
I hope it's like
I hope
it's like 30 minutes. 30 minutes will answer a lot of questions, and it's enough time to get something done.
I do not want it all.
30 minutes would be great.
I don't want that shit.
So next, that is for Who's Number One. Super happy with it. I want to see them update their rankings. I want to see them kind of move into more of a league format. Show me like what matches are coming up.
Yeah.
Like they have a product that I want to watch.
It seems like they also have a ranking system, which is great because then we know what the ranking system is.
And I hope that they update that more frequently and they keep pushing that. The podcast is back. The Grappling Bulletin is back finally. So I hope that they continue to kind of put that kind of content out and help make a league, because that makes it easier for us to cover, gives us storylines to talk about, and overall I think helps the sport grow. So Fight to Win 214. Really fun main event. Devontae Johnson versus Alex Nemeth.
And it was in Newark, New Jersey.
New Jersey. But New Jersey and New York got all the fun stuff this weekend.
Yeah.
It was some good stuff. Devontae, we had Alex pull early. Devontae's passing. He gets kicked in the face while passing.
Yeah,
then gets turned over, and he kind of like goes, "Oh, I'm here now."
Yeah, whatever.
And just lets him get restart after kind of the kick.
Yeah,
it was a very, very Fight to Win kind of restart where it's like, hey man, if both guys are cool with it, the ref's not gonna say any different, and both guys were cool with the position.
Let's backtrack for a second.
Okay.
The Rayfield match. Did you see them both like shake each other?
A little bit.
Where one definitely grabbed the other one and shook him, and then the other one turned around and did the same thing, and I was like, oh, we might have some shit flying off right here.
A little chippy.
Anyway,
but I
don't care as long as
both guys are cool with it.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I appreciated that that Fight to Win plays fast and loose with like the reset. Like, hey, both guys are cool with it. Fight to Win's not gonna go, whoa, they were here. I was like, are both guys cool with it? Yeah, okay, restart them here. We're good to go. I appreciate it. It was just a very odd situation where Devontae kind of got kicked.
Yeah, and
then took a bottom position.
It definitely looked like he went down because of the kick.
Yeah,
and he could have probably fought and probably won.
He just decided that I was like, whatever, I'm here, man. I'm not gonna make a big deal. I'm main event.
I'm gonna play butterfly now. I don't really care.
Devontae starts going immediately for like the shoulder crunch, the violent arm lock, and Jay Budo did a great job here, like talking through the position. And I love this kind of commentary. Again, that's why Big J is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite commentary guy, because he just explains why the position is working or why it's not working. And like Devontae goes for this move twice. And he explains like, oh yeah, Devontae's head is in this position. It's going to be harder to hit it. And you're watching, like you're listening to Jay talk as Devontae goes through this series of positions. And then in the second time, you hear Jay like explain why, oh, this time, because Devontae's head's over his knees and he's in a better position, this one's a lot deeper and he can use this now to sweep and to submit. And it was just really great commentary from Big J Budo on like, I'm pretty sure it was Big J.
Yeah, it was.
On like why that move was going to be effective or less effective or more effective like during the match. It was like he brings such a level of knowledgeable commentary like live, and I really appreciate that. And again, I hope that there are more commentators like him in the sport coming up. Eventually Devontae gets to top, goes to mount, hits the head and arm.
Yeah, he hits a spin pass, which I love the spin pass.
Yeah.
Because when somebody's on their back in guard, all you have to do is their head and their body and spin them like a top. And he spins in.
You don't see it very commonly. You call it a spin pass?
I don't like.
It's not a Toriando because they're on their back.
It's a spin. I when I went to Marcelo's one time, he taught it. And Marcelo taught it by you literally take your hand and slap the side of your partner's head and their knee at the same time to spin them.
I know. I learned it as the knee slap. I never learned the head part.
And when Marcelo hit, and I'm completely blanking on the instructor's name, like you heard the slap as he spun him, and yeah, it was wild. Like it was crazy. And then I got yelled at for one point for not slapping my partner hard enough. Which I then just
I've never heard this story about this Marcelo gym.
Yeah, it was our Marcelo experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've as you said, I've learned the pass once.
Yeah.
I didn't learn to smack them in the head.
Yeah,
I think I learned shoulder.
He literally smacks them in the head and their knee, and like you make them go two different directions. But I mean, he open hand like freaking full out slaps them. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I kind of enjoyed slapping my partner, but it was something I like to I like that pass.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
It's a good. I mean, obviously it works. It works here in a main event.
It also scares the shit out of people.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to react to it, and I love that. It's one of my.
Devontae uses the slap
things.
pass here. Spin pass. It's called spin pass.
It's spin pass. I think is what.
Is that what he called it?
I don't know what he called it. That's what I wrote down in my notes.
Uses the spin pass and then goes to mount. Traps the head and arm and mount. Pretty standard way. He just kind of keeps his head down low.
Yeah.
And just like you see Devontae like go, I'm in this position now. It's time.
Yeah.
And just Devontae is so strong in that top position.
And from mount, which is not the easiest position to get that in.
We're
generally.
seeing more and more guys finish it from mount.
Yeah.
Recently, like we saw was it Austin Baker finish it at the Absolutes on Franco Pano.
I forgot about that.
Like he didn't slide. Like we're seeing more and more people. I think Gordon finishes sometimes from mount and Craig finishes it. We're seeing more and more people finish it just like, yeah, man, I'm not going to slide off. I'm just going to finish it from mount. And I'm very curious. Like I think people have just gotten better at the technique, and it's really interesting that like the arm triangle has continued to develop where it's like, you don't need to get perpendicular with them anymore to finish it.
What's the fancy name for it?
Well, no, it's not Kesagatame. Because Kesagatame is just like scarf hold.
Oh, okay.
Or katagatame, depending on how you want to butcher Japanese.
I don't know. They always say that, and I always like, I don't know.
Yeah, no.
It's an arm triangle.
Because Kesagatame is like what Dean Lister got finished with by Josh Barnett. Like that, just the
sit out,
the crunch sit out there when you're in scarf hold or in a modified scarf hold there, like
and like the catch wrestling, like I'm gonna break your neck in half.
I'm gonna break your sternum and your neck here. And finish you like that. But I could be wrong, but I always knew this as, I don't know this as a katagatame. Like it's just a head and arm triangle.
Yeah. I don't know. That's what they always say, and I always kind of giggle at it because
maybe katagatame and kesagatame are different things.
Well, I think they call it a katagatame.
Yeah. Because
kesa is this position.
Yeah. Kesagatame, katagatame could be. Again, I speak English. So I'm gonna call it an arm triangle or head and arm.
Yeah.
I don't want to obfuscate, especially for like we do the podcast here. I don't want to obfuscate it needlessly for an English speaking audience. If you're listening to the show, most of our viewership is English based on the metrics. So I'm gonna stay in my lane. But again, great main event, a fight to win, 214. Let's move into the preview section. Where do you want to start? We have
We'll start with what you just picked up.
I've picked up we have the IBJJF GP Absolute GP.
When is this? This is this weekend?
This is this weekend. This is November 18th.
Ooh.
This is that spicy shit.
Dude, okay,
this is like Thursday.
Okay, back up.
This is Thursday.
Back up.
Okay.
Why the hell are you like the term spicy was used so many times in this Who's Number One card.
Was it?
So many times. Literally, I almost sat there and started counting how many times people said this. What the hell does it mean? What the hell? Tell me what spicy jiu-jitsu is.
Spicy jiu-jitsu is...
I think it's some bullshit.
Okay, so spicy jiu-jitsu...
I hate that term.
I love that
term. For whatever reason, this is my new hated thing.
So
just realize that Miranda hates everything.
There's a Nas and A$AP Ferg song called Spicy, and it's a modern classic.
But that's different.
It's an awesome song.
That's different.
It's the same
That's not talking about jiu-jitsu.
So moving on
I don't think jiu-jitsu can be spicy.
It can totally be spicy. Trust me.
No.
Moving on to the Absolute GP. Do you want to talk about the super fights or the Absolute GP first?
We'll go super fights.
Super fights. We have Zach Kana versus Eduardo Gatzana. Wait a second.
Gran Zato.
Man, we have Sergio Rios versus Jonathan Gracie. That should be super fun. I'm going to lean Jonathan on that, but Sergio's been a beast recently. We have Andy Murasaki versus Mateus Rodriguez.
Yeah, I can't go against Andy.
I can't pick it.
I'm not going to go against Andy.
Murasaki.
Yeah. And then we have Jonathan Alves versus Roosevelt Souza, which will be a fun one, and Jessica Khan versus Caraway
Hernandez.
Yeah.
I'm curious. They keep bringing Jonathan Alves on, and he got a lot of flack as a super fight on the last GP for really just lapel 50-50 for a lot of the match.
Yeah.
It is really interesting that they're bringing him back. I'm curious if we're going to see him do the same thing, or we'll see him open up his game, because he got a lot of criticism last week or a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but
on the last one, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It is just interesting that and there wasn't a lot of criticism, but he got a lot of criticism last week or a couple weeks ago that he's coming back. Moving on to the Absolute GP. This is awesome. If this list stays like this list is right now, I cannot wait for this.
And it's gonna be what, Thursday?
I think it's
man, it's gonna be like Wednesday for me.
No, I think it might be Friday.
Dude, I'm 6 hours ahead on Thursday.
It's Friday.
So it's gonna be Thursday for me.
Okay.
Or no, I don't know.
Time zones.
Time zones are gonna be all jacked up.
We have the GP. We have Kainan Duarte, Gutenberg Pereira, Roberto Cyborg Abreu, Henrique Sassoni, Ryder Zerchi.
And this is in the gi, correct?
I think so.
I think so. The pictures are in the gi.
The pictures are all in the gi.
So my assumption is in the gi.
We have Gabriel Oliveira, Elder Cruz, Francisco Lowe. There's 4 guys you don't want to bet against in this bracket.
Yeah.
Okay. Gutenberg Pereira in the gi in a GP style format.
Dude, I can't.
He can take it over Mergali.
I can't go against Gutenberg.
You
I really can't.
Gutenberg.
I can't go against.
He's the underdog pick.
Like I know
Kainan.
I know Kainan. I know Kainan can kind of.
You can't go against Gutenberg. You also can't bet against Kainan Duarte.
But like Gutenberg, like
you also can't bet against Cyborg.
You put a tank on your chest, and I kind of have to think that you're the shit.
That's the wrong guy.
Yeah. What?
That's Herbert Santos.
Is it?
Yeah. What's up, Miranda? Getting your
my
tall,
bad.
lanky Brazilians mixed up.
Yep. Whoops. I mess up that all the time.
So I think
Gutenberg is the hair. Okay.
Yeah. Gutenberg.
He's the hair.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting.
I think this.
Oh man.
This is.
I don't know. I have to
lose.
redo my pick now. I thought
if Herbert Santos was in this, that'd be wild. Like I might pick Herbert, but if Herbert Santos shows up, that dude is a monster. But if Herbert Santos shows up, dude is not.
I mean,
monster.
I love him. He's great.
So I think the real pick, the easy pick here, especially with the performances at ADCC from Elder Cruz, from Cyborg, from Gutenberg, like Kainan is the guy to pick here.
Yeah,
he's the most recent, current.
But
pick and choose your 80.
But let's say how much gi has Kainan done.
That is kind of an X factor. But again, how much gi has Gutenberg done and Cyborg done? Like all of these guys are coming out of ADCC season. You know?
Yeah, true.
And it's like I think Elder was in ADCC.
Yeah.
Cyborg's in ADCC. Gutenberg's in ADCC. Kainan's ADCC. So half your guys were recently in ADCC. Your other guys just don't have the level of world titles that those 4 have, or that kind of on that stage.
Yeah, Francisco Lowe did the amazing jumping freaking armbar.
Triangle armbar over Oliver Taza at, was it Pants? Was it IBJJF
Pants, I think. Yeah, Pants. Yeah. It was Pants.
Taza just won this weekend as well at Nogi Euros.
Did he?
Mm-hmm. He looked he looked good.
He also got slapped in the face.
He did get slapped in the face by Muslim Partagov. And he got banned, and Partagov got banned from ADCC, and it was a whole... We actually didn't cover that news because it's not news that I really like to talk about. But
but we've all seen it.
We've all seen the video now.
Yeah.
I'm going to go kind of in here. It would not surprise me to have Gutenberg or Cyborg upset everyone because they have plenty of GPs. Both those guys have done it. I bet against Cyborg for a long time in GPs, and he consistently proved me wrong. But
I think
if Kynan shows up, Kynan is almost unbeatable.
I also think Cyborg is getting a little older.
Yeah, this ADCC was not a performance.
Performances were not what we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
So, but the difference is this is in the gi, and in the gi you can kind of get away with some of it.
You can slow it down a little more.
You can slow it down a little bit more. You can bring a little more technique. You can use that muscle that he has, and the millions of years that man has been doing jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah.
So
the safe pick is Kynan. The homie pick, the gut pick is like Gutenberg, and then your dark horse pick. I hate calling Cyborg a dark horse pick, but your dark horse pick, is Abreu. But either of those guys could, and honestly, any of these guys in this bracket can definitely make a run and take a match off of any of those folks. So this should be good. I hope that it has the level of kind of ferocity that we are looking for. The last GP was the super fight piece of it. Had some good matches. The GP match had some good matches too. I just hope that overall, it's a little faster paced.
This is in Texas, right? I'm
I don't actually know where this one is. So
it's in Cali or Texas. Oh, it doesn't say.
I'm not certain.
I'm curious.
So that's the IBJJF Absolute GP. That should be a lot of fun. We also have Abu Dhabi World Pro. We don't have any brackets or anything like that for that. I'm not sure what depth we're going to be able to cover World Pro, but I really would like to cover the black belt finals for World Pro.
Yeah, it seems to be on Flow.
Yeah,
so
15th to the 19th.
Yeah.
You think usually black belts are 18th and 19th, I think.
The weekend.
I think so, but we're probably going to get the Brazilian bracket of death in an earlier day before that, because you can only have 2 from each country, which I like for that format. So we'll probably talk maybe like next week about bracket of death, and then we'll talk about World Pro if we're able to find the footage and it's actually parsed out, because past couple years it's been very, very hard to get the footage for it in a timely manner to do it for the show. So
they had
next week.
They had a big combat sambo thing in Kazakhstan this weekend.
Oh, really?
That they're all online. You can go watch these matches if you want to watch something a little bit different than you're used to. Pretty wild, pretty crazy stuff.
So also this next week we have Fight to Win 214, and we have a 155 pounds EBI style bracket on finishers, and this is the most stacked 55 bracket we have seen on a finishers in a long time.
Yeah.
Want me to go through the names?
Sure.
We got Sid Travallo, we got Andrew Franco, we got Josh Flores, we got Jet Thompson, we got David Stoley, Zach Green, Randy Baker, both DeAndre Corbray and Gavin Corbray. We have David Garcia, we have Ben Eddy, Devin Vogel, Fabian Ramirez, Quentin Perrier, we have Mark Favola, and Travis Durprest.
Yeah, that's a crazy 55 bracket.
You got 6 guys in there that any given day can take that bracket.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Both Corbett brothers are now both recently Pans champions.
Yeah.
You have a host of super fights as well. I think Alex Win on this? Or Alex Enriquez is on this?
On this?
Yeah.
Alex Enriquez
is on this as
from
well.
Georgia.
Benetti, we haven't seen a ton recently, but
he
always can kind of show up and make waves. Both Corbett brothers are there. Ramirez is on there. You probably know him from Who's Number One, but we've also we've known him for years for Four Stringers. A bunch of guys that can make giant waves in this bracket. I'm gonna go with one of the Corbett brothers here. They're probably gonna be seated opposite side, both representing standard.
What if they put them against each other?
That would be kind of.
I
They're
mean,
both seated. They're seated 8 and 9. Sorry, in the list they're 8 and 9.
Yeah, but
I doubt. I cannot imagine you would put two brothers anything but opposite.
Yeah.
And like that would be just like disrespectful.
Well, and then your final. Do they? I'm assuming they go against each other in finals.
Yeah, I mean like Caden,
yeah,
Ty.
Yeah, you're not going to do a.
No, not gonna have a fixed match or close out in a finishers. Absolutely not. So
did you have a fixed match? It's finishers. You can get away with that shit. Anyway,
so
I didn't say that. I don't know what you're talking about.
It would be.
But
it should be fun.
It definitely should be a fun, and they have some super fights. They have a variety of super fights out. Alex Enriquez, who we know from trials, I want to say she's at Atos in Georgia. She's going against Nicole Matthew, who's a local brown belt, and some other people on the card. So it should be an interesting event all around. And that's on Saturday or Sunday?
I think it's Sunday.
Sunday, yeah, because they're probably do their open. They normally do an open on Saturday, and then Sunday.
Yeah, so we were just up at finishers. So that's what we have for this week. We also have one FC. We'll talk about what we did at finishers this weekend.
Yeah.
One FC this weekend. We have Danielle Kelly versus. Do you have her name up? I had her name up a second ago. Versus Maria Molchanova. Maria Molchanova is a multiple time. You looked it up before the show.
Yeah, she's like a multiple time
like
Sambo.
2010, 11, 12, 13, 17, 18, like Sambo world champion. Like very, very decorated Sambo world champion.
Yeah, she is. Let's go. Because I had this up. She's Ukrainian, but on the Russian team.
For Sambo.
And she won 2010, 2011, 2013, 2017, 2018. And then she medaled on 4 other occasions and has 3 European Sambo titles.
Yeah.
So she definitely, I mean.
This is, again, I haven't got a chance to pull any footage from her to kind of know what she looks like. But this is a tough match for Danielle Kelly. Danielle Kelly can absolutely win this match. We saw, we've seen other folks from jiu-jitsu go and do well against Sambo practitioners. But this is, Maria is absolutely like a wild dog in this fight. And there's been some back and forth between jiu-jitsu and Sambo community for this. I don't have that much interest in it. I kind of just want to see how the match plays out and talk about it after the fact. But Maria is absolutely very, very credentialed in Sambo. So it will be interesting to see how she's able to deal with Danielle Kelly. I think she's definitely going to have the edge in the wrestling. Even if without the jacket or what's it called? A Kurtskik?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Kurtska?
Kurtska.
Or something like that. Yeah.
The Sambo jacket, even without that, I think probably still have the edge in some of the wrestling there.
And the fact that they pull submissions kind of like in judo. They pull them fast.
Yeah.
Like you're landing your takedown into a submission. You're not taking any time.
We saw Cade deal with that fine. It'll be interesting to see how Danielle Kelly deals with sort of that style of grappling.
I think Danielle Kelly has some years of wrestling.
Yeah, I think she does.
Like she has a wrestling background or some, not high level like NCAA level, but enough. It'll be interesting. If she sits, then that becomes does Molchanova, which I think she is training in Canada. I'm not really sure where she's training at, but she's out of Canada right now. I'm curious where she trains at, because it'll be interesting to see what her passing is like, because in Sambo there is no passing.
Yeah, it's not much of a thing.
No, because your takedowns to subs, and then if your sub doesn't work, they stand you back up.
Right, or your mat wrestling.
Yeah, there is no
position.
Yeah, there is no passing. There is no guard.
That's kind of what makes jiu-jitsu unique. So it's interesting to have it in a jiu-jitsu rule set where, you can play guard, and that's sort of in the grappling sports something very unique to jiu-jitsu for the most part is the prolonged period that you're allowed to play into the guard. So interesting matchup. I don't want to again speculate too much on it because I'm not super familiar with Maria's game, but it will be fun. We're going to cover it because it's exciting. That does it. Let's talk about a little about the UFC, because there were some great grappling performances in there. Aaron Blanchfield had a great performance over Marlon McCann. Topside crucifix, elbows into a Kimura finish. Wild match. This whole card was just, I watched it live at one of the gym buddies' house. Had a great time doing it. We had Weili Zhang submitting Carlo Esparza as well. looked great in her performance
show
over
up and watch
Esparza.
these sometime because I fell off like the UFC bandwagon a long time ago.
Still, it keeps bringing me back.
I enjoy watching it. When I do watch matches, I'm like, oh, I miss watching these so much. But then I just don't do it. And I don't know why. I need to get back into it because I used to be the one that would sit at the Green Turtle from like 7 o'clock all night.
Oh yeah, I did the same thing from like probably 2013 to probably 2016.
And I would always give my server like a big ass tip because I was like, you're gonna deal with me all night.
I'm gonna be here forever. I'm gonna sit at the bar forever. I'm gonna tip you well because like I get that I'm eating the seat up the entire evening, and I appreciate it. I'm gonna sit here and watch these fights and enjoy myself. Also had a great performance. Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler. That fight is an absolute banger. 3-round fight that Dustin finishes by a dope rear naked choke in 2 minutes into the third round after some super adversity and like heavy back control. Allegedly, like a fish hook was in the fight by Chandler. It was a wild banger of a fight on the feet.
How do you do a fish hook with MMA gloves?
You reach down, you grab their face, and it was a super interesting fight. Very bloody, like quick pace. Again, what you expect from Dustin and from Michael, but very, very fun. We don't cover MMA a ton, but I watched this card live, and it was a lot of very grappling heavy performances.
I probably would have cried when Frankie Edgar lost.
It was sad.
He's my favorite.
Yeah, he almost got 8 hours of octagon time total, and then he needed 5 more minutes. He needed 1 round, and he got knocked out in the first, and it was a sad moment for all of us.
Yeah, I met him.
I think he retired, actually.
Yeah, he did. I met him at a UFC event. I'm trying to think which one. It was Chael Sonnen versus Anderson Silva in New Jersey. I forget which one that was. But I was there, and the meet and greets prior to the event, because they always do like this whole fan meet and greet thing. Frankie Edgar was there, and I was very drunk, and I went up and hugged him, and I don't know if I should have touched him or not, but I gave him a ginormous hug, and he was very cuddly. That's awesome. What I remember is that he was a very cuddly man. And he became my favorite fighter at that point. Awesome. And it's sad to see him.
Had a great career.
Yeah, he did.
But you got to hang it up eventually, and so he, it was. I
hear
cool
he's
to
like a
watch
phenomenal wrestling coach.
Yeah.
So
Seth Daniels' last wrestling match was against Frankie Edgar.
I saw that
in high school.
That's hilarious.
Which is hilarious. So Dan Hooker also fought.
Somebody else
Carsado Pules.
I think somebody
pulled guard.
I think somebody also we knew almost got in a fight with Frankie Edgar coaching once. At an event, at a wrestling event.
So. It was a very, very fun weekend of stuff. Speaking of fun weekends of stuff, so Miranda and I and my wife and Adam all went up to 10th Planet Bethlehem Finishers to see a Craig Jones seminar. That was awesome. If you get a chance to go see a Craig Jones seminar, it's worth the money.
Yeah, and it was the most random subject that
it was octopus guard. He taught us, and then I was like, I'm not sure. And then immediately he started showing it. He just like gets on the mat. He like says hello and just immediately starts teaching technique.
Yeah.
There wasn't this long drawn out thing. He just like, hey, you were all here for technique. He got into technique.
Yeah.
It was probably like an hour and 45 of technique.
Yeah.
He did a great Q&A. I got to ask him a cool question about like about his guillotines for like the one on Bame and the one on Fowler and like what he's looking for to set up the guillotine. It was like a very, very knowledgeable Q&A, and there was a lot of like really good questions for him. He answered. I really appreciated in that Q&A. He answered a bunch of questions like very honestly, and if it wasn't something that he did, he had a couple questions about like stuff that he didn't do or wasn't super like not familiar, but like that wasn't in his game, and he didn't try to give an answer for them. He just was like, yeah, that's not really something I do, I will do this instead, and just didn't really entertain it and like kind of waste everyone's time talking about particulars for stuff that he didn't do.
He also did talk about like how amazing he is. Like he didn't try to boast like I'm the greatest thing in the world. Look at me, I'm so amazing. He just kind of was like very matter of fact in explaining everything.
It was a great. He talked about Uchimadas and like Harigoshis for certain pieces. Like he got a bunch of great questions, and I thought that was one of the best Q&As I've ever seen. That's the best Q&A I've ever seen. Again, it was probably the most knowledgeable group of a seminar I've ever been to.
Yeah.
But overall, the seminar was great. I took some great pieces away from how to play octopus guard and like kind of information about how Craig Jones kind of structures his game and thinks about training and thinks about submissions and competing. And overall, it was like it was a very, very good seminar, and I was very happy.
We got to see him beat up Rene Souza.
And that was very funny because you could tell like was he his coach on Who's Next?
No, because Renee Souza wasn't Renee Souza with Spriggs.
Was he with Spriggs?
Because remember they got in a fight, or the two of them were brawling.
Maybe.
But I don't remember if they were separate sides or not.
I don't know, but they seem to have a good relationship.
But they probably all trained together.
It was very
you
cool
know.
to see like Craig like poking fun at Renee and Renee trying to buggy choke him. It was a very good. It was about a 3-hour seminar.
Yeah.
Worth the money. It was about a 2.5-hour drive for us one way. So, very very cool seminar to take place this weekend. And I'm very happy I did it. It was worth the money. And I don't do a ton of seminars. But that was
the
cool.
Riotolo brothers are coming.
They
in
are.
December. There's 2 dates in December.
I may do that one.
I'm
those are
at
cool
Worlds,
dates.
so I can't.
Okay.
That's
I
Worlds
may go do that one. That would be really cool. But
Yeah.
overall, that was our week. That was my weekend. Was just watching fights, and then going to the seminar, and that's it was good. You have a trip coming up this next weekend, so
Yep.
probably gonna have Josh on next
I
weekend
leave
to cover.
Wednesday for Iceland.
That'd be awesome. You train in
I'll be
Iceland?
Yes, I plan to train in Iceland. So if you're listening and you train in Iceland, hit us up because there's like 3 gyms. I don't know Icelandic. I'm just gonna wander in and be like, "Hey,
Like,
I'm a purple
hello.
belt. Gi, no gi." Like I'm just
I got
gonna
both.
like, yeah.
Hey,
I
we're
don't
friendly.
know.
Can we train?
But yeah, and
That is one of the
it's
fun
just
things
it's
I
gonna
love
be me
about-
by myself, which is gonna be the funniest part about it. And then the other thing is gonna be if they try to teach, like I'm gonna watch what you do, but like I don't understand Icelandic. Like maybe that's my way of learning Icelandic.
Apparently, Icelandic is a specifically difficult language
Yeah,
to learn.
for Americans.
for English speakers.
Have you seen the words?
Yeah,
The words are ridiculously long.
I've seen them.
I figured out that I think foss means waterfall, or at least every waterfall has that part of their name. So I'm like, okay, they're the waterfalls.
You're gonna do great.
That's
You're gonna do great in Iceland.
I
So,
know. Well, it's gonna be me and my kid driving around trying to find fun things to do.
That'll be awesome. You'll have a great time. That'll be cool.
And then
You'll come
see
back
if I
with
can
cool
train.
Iceland stories.
Yeah.
So, I got nothing else. You have anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right. As always in the show, I'm your host Maine, my co-host,
Miranda.
and we have the grappling we're going to see on the map. And what it is. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Google Plus,
Until that shuts down.
we have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
Let us know.
reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.